To another exciting episode of it's episode 16 with Alice in Wonderland.
Footnotes.
Directed by Footnotes. Welcome to another episode of Footnotes. This time we're going to be talking about Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
The 2012. When did the movie come out? I don't know. What you're listening to, by the way, is S.J. Tucker. We're all mad here. It's a good song. It's like a indie folk type music.
I'm not hearing it.
No, you're not hearing it, Jacob, because there's a microphone plugged into the computer.
So it's playing to
It's playing for the audience.
Okay.
But we're not hearing it.
Okay.
Because the audio
Okay.
is linked through.
I was not aware of that. Don't tap the microphone.
I'll tap whatever I feel like.
But you
tapping.
know what sound that makes.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. This would have been a great Alice in Wonderland by Tim Burton. The kind of 2010. Yeah, 2010. Okay, so not as recent as I thought. Controversial opinion, right? Or what do you think? The second movie better or worse than the first one?
Exact same amount.
It's the exact same.
Yeah. When I first watched these movies,
I think they're both abysmal, but the second one is less abysmal than the first one.
I wanted to love them.
Yes.
I didn't.
Because you were like an edgy emo kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
As I grew up,
this
and developed
movie,
a taste for
blood, for good media, for better media.
Well, yeah. I realized that this is
Here's
empty.
What?
Empty. It's empty.
The movie is empty of
emotion.
That it doesn't actually have any, like, it's not legitimately dark because there's no emotional depth to anything, so you don't care about any of the characters.
That's exactly right.
These are terrible movies. They're like, it's like if for those of you who don't know, with the development of the internet, Alice in Wonderland has become, there's a lot of that's how to say, there's a lot of no, Jacob, that's not where I was going with that at all. I should have finished the sentence faster before you decided to jump in.
Yeah, well, too bad.
Jesus.
It took too long.
Jesus. Although there is a fair amount of, I guess, like sexualization of the story, partly because of its allegorical nature and also because, there's that like imprinting, right? Where like you're young and you see like a girl in a dress and you're like, yeah, right? And then it just becomes stuck in your head.
I mean, some could say that the surreal writing of the story is psychological, sexual even.
No, it's not. It's not sexual at all. It was written as a children's book, and it's about childhood.
Right. This
you read the book.
Most importantly, this book is about math. This is what we need to remember. People think it's about having fun and a dream for kids. No, it's about math.
Do people think it's about having fun?
It's about learning math.
Do people think it's about having fun? Because the book is very dry and it's very satirical. It's not like I think the reason why it sticks in people's heads is that it's not like, more so than other than similar type stories, is that it's not like Gulliver's Travels. It's not like The Wizard of Oz, where you are like, you're transported to a fantastical realm of where magic exists and there are these different races, right? It's just it's absurdist. It's not fantasy.
Everyone's different.
Yeah. It's surreal. It's not fantasy. And I think Alice in Wonderland is like I wasn't going to say it's one of the first surreal books, because I'm sure there were plenty of surreal book fiction that was created before Alice in Wonderland. But
popularized.
Yeah, definitely, because children are willing to put up with crazy things happening without like any explanation or any kind of I guess like there doesn't need to be a basis in reality for them to be invested in the story.
No, but you see, the shrink potion actually had quantum molecular manipulation nanobots.
What's messed up is that as people get older, right, and their tastes evolve, they become interested. As you get older, you become interested in more dark material. You want things that are more
serious,
challenging. Things that express. Why so serious? Things that express, emotions like despair or anguish, and
your own frustration with the fact that you can't get enough poon.
Jacob, I don't know what the hell is going on with you, but you need to stop it right now, okay? Right now. You need to stop it. Stop it right now. Okay. Although that is accurate. That is the reason why many people are frustrated with the world. I think it's probably a contributing factor to some of the more cringy, edgy stuff that people will do. Is their own, it's not healthy to not have sex for a certain amount of time, or to not relieve yourself at least. What's messed up is that as you grow older, right, you want to fill that that surrealism. What I never understand is that this is not like the only story where they're like, all right, people like Alice in Wonderland. Well, what if we made it an adult, right? But making it an adult means trying to explain it?
Yeah. Because adults prefer
children
fundamental explanation.
Children are children are imaginative and open-minded. Yeah. So they're willing to go along with a story that doesn't really... They also are less detail-oriented. So they're willing to go along with stories that don't make any sense as long as the story is interesting, right? Versus adults... And typically they're like, I want structure. I don't want to just be bumbling around in this place forever because it doesn't make any sense and I can't get invested in anything, right? Which is kind of stupid, right? It's it limits what kind of things you can enjoy.
I mean, you can do both.
Yeah.
This is a dream where
there are adults who enjoy surreal fiction as well.
So nonsensical things happen in dreams in real life. So any of this can be explained.
That was a sentence and a half right there.
In real life.
No, it's just a dream. Is that's even the explanation that's at the end of the Alice in Wonderland book is that Alice wakes up from her dream and then you get a little poem where Lewis Carroll talks about childhood and the summer days of youth, right? But what's messed up is that there's this, right, where they're like it's not a dream. There's actually a separate dimension that's underground and it's got dragons in it, right? And then there's that, right? And then there's Jesus. There's if anyone has ever seen the I think it's called Looking Glass. It's a graphic novel, and it has the Hatter is like a bodyguard for this queen, right? I think they actually probably ripped off the story from that to make this film, but he has to go to the real world, Earth, and find Alice, who is a princess, basically. And bring her back to his dimension. And it's all steampunky and Tim Burton-y and it's stupid because
I thought you were going a different direction.
No, it's stupid because it's taking something that's a child, right? That it's for children, and it's trying to apply real world logic to it. Yeah. It's trying to apply a nice, clean, semi-adult. I think it's the book was made for teenagers or preteens. Narrative to something that doesn't deserve or need a narrative. Because Alice in Wonderland is a story exists in the realm of rhetoric and imagination. It does not exist in the world of structure and character development and plot threads.
So this isn't going to be a long movie.
Well, we can always do the thing maybe they shouldn't even make a movie, right? For those who don't know, by the way, for those who don't know, Footnotes is a podcast where we writing podcast where we try and fix bad things.
Is this episode just going to be about us talking about how bad the movie was?
Oh yeah, probably. It was really bad. Well, there's the one thing where it's like Johnny Depp is not a talented actor, right?
Yes, he is. Come on.
Well, is he?
Yes, he is.
Is he?
Rango.
Oh, well, I guess he did a good job in Rango. That was just his voice, though. But I mean, like, because in, like, Edward Scissorhands, he's just being, like, quiet and, like, which that's, like, non-facial. I guess that's fair. But that's, like, he's not working hard on verbal cues to express himself well.
He was great in Ed Wood. I know you didn't watch that movie, but
I haven't seen Ed Wood. Okay. Well, maybe not. But I mean, like, so, like, with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, right? Like it's increased. Well, it's Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and this movie, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and The Lone Ranger, right? Where they just put a bunch of makeup on Johnny Depp and have him act out a character, right? And he acts out a really broad character, right?
Right. But
that means that he doesn't really have to be a good actor because he's pretending to be a crazy person and he's covered in makeup. So it's more like pretending to be like a monster or pretending to be like an animal. It's not like acting. It's not like acting like a character who is complex and.
But we're not trying to make a complex character here.
Probably not. Well, here's the other thing: is that somebody's already done like Dark Alice in Wonderland. It was called. I think it was called McGee's Alice in Wonderland. It was a video game. It came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a puzzle-based adventure game where, you pick up objects and you use them to solve puzzles.
Uh-huh.
And in that...
Sounds fun.
And in that, Alice was insane.
Right.
I think, like, her house had burned down. She was in an asylum. I think she might have been...
classic woman's hysteria.
She might have been raped at one point. I don't remember. I never played the game. I've just read synopsises about it. But it was very steampunk, and it was very, like, clock punk, I guess, more so than steampunk.
Clock punk is based around Renaissance technology.
Jacob,
excuse me.
That doesn't exist, okay? The Renaissance version of steampunk doesn't exist. However, interest in clocks and gears does exist as a thing. So, ergo, clock punk doesn't exist in the Renaissance era. Nobody's idolizing the Renaissance era. Everybody's idolizing either the Victorian era or the medieval era or possibly sometime before that, but less likely.
Okay, but clock punk isn't just a part of...
Clock punk.
I said clock punk. Okay.
Okay.
It isn't just an extension of steampunk. There's a difference.
Not really, though. But it is. But it's just like a fascination with like old technology.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Which is clocks.
Clocks.
Yeah. I mean, we don't use clocks anymore. We have digital.
We still have
digital.
Clocks.
Yeah, no, I know.
What's interesting about clocks is they move by themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what clock punk is based on. Why are we talking about this? Alice in Wonderland.
What do clocks run
on? I believe kinetic energy.
Oh yeah, you just like turn it up. Uh-huh. Yeah. So you don't have to like plug it in and electricity keeps it going. It moves on its own, and then you have to read.
That's exactly it.
It's weird. The second movie is very clock punk because she goes to where time lives, and there's a bunch of metal automaton people living there, right?
Oh yeah. I kind of like that part when the seconds turned into minutes. That was kind of fun.
Well, I like the part that's so. So if anybody has seen the BBC made I think because it's like a classic English story. So the BBC has made a bunch of, I think, like low quality retellings, right? They did like a low quality retelling of The Wind in the Willows, I think. They did a low quality retelling of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I think they've done multiple ones for Alice in Wonderland. And if you've seen any of those, it's like, it's exactly the book. and they use what special effects they have at their disposal to represent the characters being various animals. But a lot of them are just in costumes. Some of the costumes are not super great, and then they have they just go around and they do nonsensical things, and then at the end, she wakes up and she goes back home.
Many people might just remember this movie as a fever dream.
Well, it's terrible.
I mean, these movies, these low-budget movies you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well,
fever dreams.
Well, I don't think a lot of people have seen these movies because we used to watch them on VHS tapes, which we got from garage sales and stuff.
Yeah.
So there were those, and then I don't know if you remember, but there was some I think early 2000s version of Alice in Wonderland, a live action movie, and it had an actual child playing Alice, right? She was 10 or probably older, 10 or 12, around that age.
You realize this phenomenon that
I'm going somewhere with this, so if you could please just wait. At the end of the film, at the end of that film, they sort of hint. I don't know what they were doing. They kind of hinted at there's going to be a sequel where she goes out of Wonderland and then she's like, oh, there's my parents, right? And then she realizes she's in this mirror. Basically, she can see her parents walking around, but she can't talk to them and they can't hear her. And then, I don't know if you remember this either, a giant this monster comes out. And it's the Jabberwocky, and it's terrifying because it's completely different from everything else that's happened in the film up until that point. And you just, I don't know, at that point, you probably die of fear if you're a child under the age of 8.
You are a kid when you're watching this, so you keep looking away from the screen, and you have these very...
I just remember a dark clawed thing with the giant jaws. Lifting itself up out of the darkness, and the girl screaming.
Yes.
And then it was maybe we'll make Alice in Wonderland through the Looking Glass, but they knew they weren't going to, so they just made a twist ending, I guess, to screw with people. But other than that, it was a pretty faithful adaptation, if I remember correctly. So those are the two kinds of live action adaptations that have been made, and then of course there's various animated adaptations.
There are very many live action retellings of Alice in Wonderland. I've looked them up. There are 50.
Which is really... Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it would be a lot.
And I realized the phenomenon that there are 2 books about Alice in Wonderland written by the original author.
I think there are actually 3 books.
Maybe.
There was a book that came out after Looking Glass, but I don't know if that's true.
And then... The Wizard of Oz, sort of a counterpart to Alice in Wonderland,
has 26
has
books
a very
in the series.
Established lore.
Yeah, it has 26 books in the series. It has an established world with characters who can currently show up throughout the series. Yeah. It has a canon, basically, right? It has its own system of magic, kind of. And it's much... and nobody has ever made really... Well, it's so weird, right? Because people keep making movies of Alice in Wonderland. Nobody has ever really made a movie of The
Wizard of the East?
No, but like the other books that came out in that series. Nobody's ever made a movie of Ozma in Oz, or the Scarecrow in Oz, right? Or the Tin Woodsman in Oz. Those are all those books that came out after the original Wizard of Oz, and which I assume were semi-popular, or he wouldn't have kept making them, right? But they've made a movie of Return to Oz, right? Which is that really freaky 1970s version where she's in an asylum. Yeah. And now that I think about it, it's kind of similar to the thing I was describing before, the McGee's Alice in Wonderland.
I mean, that budget was a little higher, right?
No,
it had stop motion.
Yeah, it wasn't low budget, but it was very the costumes were kind of rickety and the sets were kind of grimy, I guess is what you could say.
That's charming, though.
Right, I like that movie, but they've never come out with another sequel. And when they made Oz the Great and Powerful, they completely they ignored all of the lore that exists there in L. Frank Baum's universe, and they made a worse version of Wicked.
But
That's what they decided to go with. James Franco. Well, yeah. I mean, things have come out about James Franco recently, so things have also come out about Johnny Depp now that I think about it.
Things have also come out about, any celebrity over 30.
Well, that's not fair, okay? Now you're just insulting the celebrities that things haven't come out about. No. I'm sure the communists are like, it's because they're rich.
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. It's a brilliant metaphor for capitalism. No, Alice in Wonderland. And math. Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. That movie, right, though, with like the Jabberwocky showing up as a monster at the end, that's like a much more interesting movie than this is. Right? Yeah. Where it's like her running through, like, I guess escaping through some kind of surreal nightmare mirror world while a giant monster is following her and her parents can't hear her. That's like a legitimate horror movie.
Should this be it?
I'm thinking that maybe it should. Because again, like, you shouldn't try and make it like, oh, Alice has a character arc and the Red Queen is the villain, right? Like, doing that stuff is misunderstanding what the story actually was, because in the actual story, the Red Queen doesn't actually kill anybody. Everybody in court is just like, oh yes, we'll behead them, and then they just let the person go. They're just appeasing her temporarily because she's royal, which is a good metaphor for how monarchies actually function.
Constitutional monarchy.
Yeah, I guess, but like also how it's just like appeasing this one person with like platitudes without ever taking them seriously.
I mean, to an extent, that's all of the government.
No, because the government actually functions to do things, like to maintain things. Like the idea of this petty monarch, right, decreeing that random people be executed for various perceived slights is talking about like the irrationality of royalty and how many of them are insane, which was true. A lot of royal people were insane because of inbreeding and other things, I'm sure.
Mostly inbreeding.
Backstabbing too. Backstabbing in the court probably drove them insane.
Bigotry. There was very little information going around in there.
Right. Well, a lot of people were insane back in the Middle Ages as well. People were hallucinating and
also medical inaccuracies.
Religious fanaticism. Yeah, there were a lot of reasons why people were crazy back then. Back then, I say, as if people aren't still crazy. So yeah, I think that the Alice in Wonderland should be like that, or it should be. It shouldn't be. This is like so. This movie is like the Tumblr. It's like if you took all that edgy fan art and all the edgy posts about like we're all mad down here, right, and all that like endless repetition of meaningless garbage, right, and the Disney-fied version of Alice in Wonderland. It's if you took all of that and then you made it into a movie, and it sort of marked the beginning of all of the live-action versions of Disney films, right?
Really? That was the first one?
Kind of. I mean, it's hard to. Wasn't the first one? I think so.
I guess I don't know.
It was before Maleficent.
It was before Maleficent.
It came out after that, like, weird rash of Snow White films, I think. Like, I think Snow White and the Huntsman and Mirror, Mirror, those came out before then. But that was during, like, the everybody was back into fairy tale stuff that was inspired by Fable.
So this was a transition.
Yeah, it was sort of the transition period. And this movie made a bunch of money. It was probably...
so much money.
Yeah, it made, like, millions.
Over $1 billion.
Yeah, worldwide. Yeah. It was insane. So they're like, of course we'll make a sequel, right? Yeah. Yeah. Fat checks for Mr. Timothy Burton. When do you think they're going to make a live action version of The Nightmare Before Christmas?
I mean, it's different from the other ones.
Yeah, but like they got to do that eventually, right?
The Nightmare Before Christmas even belonged to Disney.
I'm pretty sure Disney made it.
I'm not sure.
I think they did. I could be wrong. Did you know that I was in the bookstore today? Did you know that there's a off topic? Did you know there's a Monopoly version of Coraline? Which they make Monopoly versions for everything, but I just don't understand what that would even be.
Well, it would be Coraline, but like Monopoly. It'd be Monopoly.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
But like Coraline.
But what does that mean, Jacob? Like, is Coraline going around and selling houses and like building houses and hotels?
Yes.
In like the alternate otherworld universe,
the metal figurines.
Yeah, what is that though?
It's Monopoly.
I don't think like Monopoly. They used to do things that made sense. They were like Monopoly, the national parks, Monopoly, the like exotic pets, right? Yeah. Now they just slap it on anything. It's like Clue.
So this new movie is a surrealist horror. I believe
it's a surreal horror movie, right? But it has like a child protagonist, and I imagine it sort of functions as like a scary movie for kids. Like I'm not imagining this is not like well, I don't know. I was imagining
those old-timey movies were pretty scary.
Old-timey movies?
Yeah, the low-budget ones.
Are you imagining it in like black and white with like
maybe it's reverse Wizard of Oz when she goes into the world. It's black and white.
Oh, like it's color in the real world, but it's black and white in Wonderland. Yeah, that could work. It could be something like that. We're sort of just spitballing here, but the thing is, will we even? I guess it has to be like live action, right? Or otherwise we would just be like, make another crazy animated Alice in Wonderland movie and let the artists go crazy and let them do whatever they want, right?
Mm-hmm. We can't do that?
I guess not, right? Well, I mean, we could, but this seems kind of structured. Here's the thing, right? So would we have it that like we would, or maybe we could even do it like, it's live action in the real world.
Yeah. But animated in the other world.
In Wonderland.
Yes. Like James and the Giant Peach.
Like James and the Giant Peach. Yeah, this is how we make a good Tim Burton. Circle. This is how we make a good Tim Burton movie, by copying earlier Tim Burton movies. That's not what got him in trouble at all. Yeah, no, but like that makes sense though, right? Like that's a thing that makes sense because it gives the sense of surreality. Plus, it means that a bunch of surreal things can happen in the not physical world.
Yeah.
So, should we have it that the creature is like chasing her through Wonderland, like since the beginning, it's chasing her?
I think she could see the thing in the real world, and then when she comes in the world, she's sort of distracted by all the other stuff that she isn't really thinking about it.
Right, because I was imagining like is it like the creature is chasing her throughout the film, like the rhino in James and the Giant Peach, sort of? Like, is it a thing that like attacks her and her parents and chases her into Wonderland? Like, instead of her following the rabbit, she gets chased and she falls down a hole while she's running. That's what I was imagining.
This sounds right. Yeah.
You think it should be like that? Should the creature be different in the physical world than it is should it be different in the real world than it is in Wonderland?
Or yeah. I mean, it's
right. It'd be animated, but I'm just wondering how different would it be? Like, how would we make it different?
This is the Jabberwocky.
Yeah, the Jabberwocky that we're talking about.
And is it just a big dragon?
Well, the Jabberwocky looks kind of like a dragon. It has kind of like its face is kind of like a rabbit because it has big like buck teeth, and then it has these sort of like ear I don't think they're ears; they're like antenna or horns. I might be misremembering it, but they look kind of like ears. So it looks like a dragon sort of, but with like a rabbit-like face, and then it just has big, blind, like big sheer white eyes, and it snarls.
Is this supposed to be a parallel? Because if an evil rabbit is chasing her into the hole, then that's pretty much
Yes, Jacob?
yeah.
Is a parallel for what?
It's a parallel for Alice chasing
Capitalism.
the rabbit into the hole.
Oh, a parallel. I thought you meant like a parable.
Oh. No, I said parallel.
No, you're right. No, I thought you were like, it's a metaphor for war or something like that. No, well, the other thing is we could make it look like whatever we want to, because in the original book they never say what the Jabberwocky looks like, just that it's a terrifying beast.
It has jaws and claws.
Yes, as long as it has jaws and claws, and if we wanted to, we could literally just make it like a cloud with jaws and claws that chases her around.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Like it's just like a black storm cloud.
And occasionally it takes shapes of some sort.
Yeah, maybe it can shapeshift into various monsters as it chases her.
Yeah, I like this. All right.
So then it chases her through the story. So I'm imagining we sort of fast track through a lot of the different like surreal scenes, get interrupted by the thing showing up and chasing her away from there.
Yeah.
But in this version, then what happens then? Like what's our conclusion? So we know what happens in Alice in Wonderland. It chases her through the various scenes. I'm imagining she keeps trying to find people who can help, but everybody is afraid of it, or they don't believe that it exists, right? Or they have their own, like, everybody's insane, so they're not going to help her, right? She's alone. She's completely alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the conclusion then? Like at the Queen's trial, what happens then? Does she go back to does she wake up in the real world and then have to fight the Jabberwock, or does she defeat the Jabberwock in like the cartoon world?
Well, this is kind of a horror movie, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't need a conclusion.
Oh, you mean it ends just the way that the other one did, with her coming back and being stuck in a mirror?
Well, yeah, or she just wakes up in the real world and the Jabberwocky is still there.
Okay. I guess we could do that. That's very grim.
Well, I mean, if you don't want it, then fine. She kills the Jabberwocky by screaming at it. I'm not afraid of you anymore.
Yeah. You hear me? I'm not afraid anymore. Yeah, that kind of thing. Jesus. No, I was thinking so what if throughout the movie, as she's trying to escape the Jabberwocky,
mm-hmm.
and she, the whole idea of there being like two of me. That's kind of explored. Reflection. Yeah, like the reflection.
Yeah.
What if, as she's going through Wonderland, she sees there's various mirrors, right?
Yeah.
And every time she looks in a mirror, she sees through a mirror in the real world. And she sees like another her walking around with her parents, right?
Yeah.
And what if the other her is the Jabberwocky?
Oh, okay. So that's weird. That's really weird.
Yes.
Okay.
And then she at some point, right, they're like about to kill her or whatever, right? She smashes a mirror, right, and breaks through to the real world.
Yeah.
And then there's the other her there.
Yeah.
And then she kills the other her.
And then she wakes up.
No, I was just imagining like what if it's kind of like a reverse Coraline situation where this thing has taken her place.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just imagining, like, what if, this thing is like taking her, it like tricked her into going into Wonderland, right? Knowing that she would never be able to find her way out because it's like, there's no sense of like time or direction down there. And it like took her place as the other Alice. And then it's like draining the life force out of her parents slowly.
That's Oh boy. Yeah.
And then maybe we never get. So then maybe we never get to see what the Jabberwocky is. We just hear about what it does. And at the end of the film, when she breaks back into the real world, it transforms from the other her into this horrifying creature that she somehow defeats.
Well, I mean, I don't think that.
And then maybe instead of it chasing her through Wonderland, she can be chased by like the Jub
I
Jub
guess
bird and
it's
the
like
Bandersnatch.
in it, it's powered by fear,
Yes.
and when it could just get hit by a stick and then die.
It could be something like that. Or it could be. I was thinking she takes something from Wonderland back with her.
Uh-huh.
Like a piece of food so she can
The
grow.
mushroom.
Like a mushroom so she can grow giant and defeat it.
That's kind of
Stupid.
lame.
Well, yeah, then it just turns into like a King Kong versus Godzilla style film. But it could be that, or it could be that she brings back. It could be like the Vorpal sword if we wanted it to be something like that.
She doesn't just like.
Or maybe it could be that she like grabs her parents and runs into another like portal, like another mirror with them, basically, and it chases them as they run like between mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And then as it's chasing her, she smashes a mirror, so that it's trapped. It can't follow them back through.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? That's like a pretty good conclusion because it's like climactic and horrifying, and the thing is still seemingly unstoppable. Like it's seemingly unkillable, at least.
No, I don't remember it.
What?
I don't remember the song when Phineas and Ferb are traveling through the dimensions.
Oh, you're trying to. I think it's like a brand new reality.
Yes.
A brand new reality. Yeah, that. They kind of like that kind of sequence where maybe we can even show them like changing styles as they run through mirrors. Maybe it can be like they become animated and then they become claymation,
Sort of silly,
and then they become papermation. Well, but it would represent them. It would. Yeah, it's silly, but like we wanted it to be not. Like we're not making the Babadook here. We're not making something that's like purely horrifying. Yeah. We're making something that's scary, but also like dreamy. Yeah.
Dreams are scary because you don't know when you wake up,
unless you're lucid dreaming.
Unless you're lucid, well, then it might be more difficult.
Also true.
If you're panicking.
So I'm imagining this creature, the Jabberwock, like transforms into a rabbit, and she follows the rabbit. Right, it turns into a really cute bunny, and she follows it through the meadow, and then it takes her to a tree where it's set up. The ground collapses underneath her, and it transforms into her, and like waves goodbye to her as she falls into this endless abyss. And then we go through the regular story, and then maybe she learns more about this thing and about its followers as she goes.
Yeah. So we're still doing all the potion to grow and shrink in the door.
Well, we can condense. I think maybe we'll cut out some scenes, depending.
Yeah.
Like there's some stuff that doesn't need to be in there. The other thing is if we're depending on how much we're committing to this, we could make it more like, I was going to say more like the Looking Glass, because Tweedledee and Tweedledum don't show up in Alice in Wonderland. They're from the Looking Glass. There's also Humpty Dumpty in the Looking Glass, who is the one who tells her about the Jabberwock. But I don't know. I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking like, if any of the characters were to be able to like impart some wisdom into her about how to escape, it would be like, it could be like the tortoise
Yeah, I suppose it could be like all of the characters sort of know, but not completely, and she has to
Oh,
figure it out for herself.
yeah. Well, it could be that they're all aware of the Jabberwock. It's some kind of terrible being.
Yeah.
That's been like haunting
Hmm. A
their
peaceful little realm.
well, no, but maybe it's like everything is. Uh, they're all living in fear, right? And then we there can be some of the more like the scenes that are just. I guess most of the scenes are pointless, but the some of the scenes we can remove or change,
Yeah.
um, or simplify even, and have it be. Yeah, like I'm imagining the tea party would get like interrupted by one of the creatures showing up and trying to kill her. And maybe it can be something like the Jabberwock needs her to die in Wonderland so that it can take over her body in the other world, in that real world.
Does it do this normally?
Yeah,
Okay.
or maybe Wonderland is like some kind of like
Base.
yeah, like or some kind of like hell place where it sends these people that it takes over their lives,
And they turn into the crazy people.
Yeah, maybe the crazy people are just a bunch of people who are the people who've been living down in this hell place for so long that they've gone insane. All of them.
It explains all the different time periods that all the people identify in.
Yeah. No. Well, we're doing the thing again of like trying to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Which even this version doesn't really make sense because we're not explaining
Okay,
where
but this
the
can
thing
all be
comes
speculated.
from. Yeah, that's also true. We're not making any hard decisions. I think we came up with a pretty good plot here. Should she have like another character that she can confide in at any point?
I mean, it feels
be
mandatory.
Right. It would be more. It would be more scary if she was just isolated the whole time and unable to express herself to anyone but like her own reflection, basically. Um.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think we have a decent idea. I haven't written anything down. We've just been talking, but
that's better.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, this would be pretty loose. The other thing is it being surreal. We wouldn't have to come up with that much of a plot.
Right.
Just like that basic structure of this is what's happening, and yeah. Yeah, so I think that's pretty good. And with that in mind, we probably would never make a sequel to this movie. We
Also,
would never make
wait.
Yes.
The movie's kind of about the book or something. It's kind of about like not being able to apply logic to something nonsensical.
Yeah.
Right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, well, because in the movie Alice, who God bless the actress, because in the second movie you can clearly see that she can show emotion, but in the first movie it must have just been like, I guess she was directed to be as like cold and distant as possible, right? And to have absolutely no interest in anything that was happening. And maybe it's partly her fault as well, but that's
what are we talking about?
We're talking about in the movie, the actress who plays Alice, she's completely unfazed by everything that's happening, right? She's simultaneously unfazed and unbelieving, and the way she goes is like, this doesn't make any sense, so I refuse to believe that it's actually happening, right? Yeah. And then I guess the lesson, if there is one, in the end, when she faces the Jabberwock, she's like, she's basically like, this may as well happen.
Yeah.
I've done impossible things this past week. Let's do this too, basically. Okay. Which is like, believe in yourself because the world doesn't make any sense. So why not?
Here that the sacred knight has long hair.
Yeah. I don't understand. How can you take something like Alice in Wonderland and shove the most boring possible plot points? Oh, you're the chosen one, and you have to slay a dragon. That's the best you can come up with? Really? That's the best you can come up with?
Does the Cheshire Cat have to be in this?
I imagine he would like apparate and disapparate throughout a scene, maybe.
Right.
Or maybe he can like maybe she can be in the woods and the cat like appears and is like run, right? Mm-hmm. And then he like disappears and she's like, why? And he shows up again and he says, behind you. And then he disappears again and she looks behind and sees one of the creatures. Yeah. The Bandersnatch is following her.
Yeah. The Bandersnatch?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm imagining. What are the creatures that the Jabberwock sent to kill her? The Bandersnatch and the Jub Jub Bird.
All right. Yeah. We got it.
That was really half-hearted.
I did that on purpose. Let's try it for
No, I figured as much. Ow! Okay. So with that in mind, I think we have a pretty good base for what would happen in the story. I think we came up with, it's inspired by other things, but it's original. It's not something that's been done before. On this subject, before we wrap up, I feel like this is a much more efficient episode because we didn't have to. We're just grafting it onto a story that already exists. Yeah. Alice in Wonderland, and changing a few things. I guess changing a bunch of things, but it's not too difficult. On the subject, do you think that Tim Burton would have done better
if he actually cared?
Well, no, that's obviously true. But if he wasn't rich, right, he would have an incentive to work, to be a better artist, yes. Right? Which is, I guess it's, I don't know. That's definitely true. But I mean, like, do you think he would have done better with something like The Wizard of Oz, where it's an actual fantasy, versus Alice in Wonderland, where it's entirely satirical and nonsensical? Do you think that his style lends itself more to fantasy dark fantasy than it does to absurdism?
A lot of people say that Tim Burton is closer to absurdism than it is to fantasy because of,
go ahead,
because of the weirdness that's in his more iconic movies.
Right, he makes fantastical realism with everything is normal, but we have a giant castle over there where a mad scientist is making a man with metal fingers, right? So that's grafting. That's taking some fantastical elements and just putting it into the real world.
Yeah,
which is that's kind of like low fantasy, basically, is what it is.
It's more grounded.
Yeah.
So why do you? Does it?
Yes.
Miss Peregrine's, right?
Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Yes.
It's a great book.
Yeah. Well, I can't confirm that. I have not read it. It
was a great book, though.
Mixed things about it. Yes, go ahead.
Mixed thing. Well, and it's low fantasy.
Yeah.
It didn't work for him.
Well, I think that might have to do with him not... How to express this? It's the George Lucas effect, right?
Also, the movie was just poorly written. That isn't even his problem.
Well, did he write the movie?
No, he directed it.
Oh, well then it's not entirely his fault, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some directors can they're willing to be like, nah, and they'll rewrite the whole script if they have to get the movie perfect for their vision.
That is something that directors can do.
Yeah. Like Stanley Kubrick, I think, would be the kind of person who does that kind of director. But not all directors are like that. Some directors are like, all right, I'll work with what I've got.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll add in lines or they'll take out scenes, but they won't revise a script to make the movie the way that they want. They're not the creator, they're just the director.
Yeah.
So I can't say if it's entirely his fault, but I said before, it's the George Lucas effect. Once you become famous and people love your work, you're less incentivized to do well.
Well,
and you become more convinced of your
George
own
Lucas
rhetoric.
Isn't even what made the original trilogy good.
Right, because the second one is the best movie, and that's the one that he had the least to do with.
I guess.
But George Lucas also had to do with like Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And-
he was creative. Give him that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's how to put this. There's a difference between like it's hard to say when we've bitched so much about the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Temple of Doom, right? And those are the ones that are more silly and George Lucas-y, basically. But the original Star Wars, the first Star Wars, the one that Lucas did have a lot to do with, presumably, right? I think that movie is good, not in spite of its campiness. It's good because of its campiness.
Yeah.
You shouldn't take it super seriously because it's not a serious sci-fi film. It's a sci-fi fantasy adventure inspired by stuff like the
Valerian.
Yeah, Valerian and stuff like that. It's inspired by those crappy 1930s, 1920s adventure stories where people would go around shooting each other with laser guns and flying to the moon and back on spaceships, right? Those things are good. It's good because of its campiness, right? Once you start to like imitate yourself, once you start to reiterate on your own work, it becomes it's the Simpsons effect. I'm relating this to so many metaphors right now, but the Simpsons used to be good, right?
Yeah.
And then now all the characters are just parodies of what they once were.
Yes.
Homer is a parody of what people think Homer was.
Yes.
So George Lucas's movies are just parodies of what George Lucas used to be. He used to have restraint, and now he doesn't. He just he takes what he used to do and he makes more of it.
What is he doing right now?
Well, George Lucas isn't doing anything right now, but it's the same thing with Tim Burton, where Tim Burton just like he takes the things that people remember about his old movies and he just makes that again. But he doesn't make it with the same passion or the same competency because it's just an imitation of what he used to make.
Yeah. Running low on the Alice in Wonderland fund, I'll have to make a new movie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other thing, right? Is once you're rich and you start spending, once you're rich and you own like a really nice house, you own a nice car, you have commitments, you have like you have to keep up with a certain lifestyle. You start maybe, you're a little bit lazier with your work because you're less incentivized to do well, right? Because it's more about money at that point, and you're incentivized to churn it out faster.
And the good movies aren't always the best moneymakers. Remember that.
Well, a lot of film buffs would say that the good movies are never the moneymakers, but yeah. Yeah, well, that's the other thing is I'm sure, people can talk about like artistic integrity all you want, but if you're an artist, you still think about like how much money you're going to make unless you're completely insane. So I'm sure Tim Burton was like, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if I made this easier for the audience to relate to. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if I made this like not esoteric and weird and difficult to understand.
Yeah.
He's incentivized to do that. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when you churn out terrible movies like Alice in Wonderland 2010. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any suggestions,
enjoy the
show
podcast.
Yeah, we need like a theme that's like that. That's us going.
Never going to though.
Footnotes. That kind of thing. Yeah. Thank you for watching. We hope that you appreciated or enjoyed the show to some extent. If you have your own suggestions about how you would fix Alice in Wonderland, the 2010 film, by all means, put them in the comments below. But what I was getting at before was that I was thinking, like, if you look back at that Return to Oz movie, that movie is a lot about, like childhood trauma and dealing with. But even then, like, that's like a good story because it's like it's subtle and meaningful, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Tim Burton can make subtle stories.
I guess that wasn't his forte to begin with.
Yeah, all of his stories are very. It's the moral is very obvious. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's a style of storytelling that limits you to some extent, I think, to be on that side of the scale.
Yeah, so that's that. It's episode 16.
Yeah, it's episode 16. What are we doing for our next episode, Jacob?
Well, next episode is a TV show, I believe. And
Does it have to be?
I mean, we've done two movies in a row.
We're running out of TV shows, Jacob.
Well,
do we want to do Buffy the Vampire Slayer again?
I was thinking Grimm, but we can do Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Well, I don't know about Grimm because we changed it so much that we'd have to basically come up with a season to.
Yeah.
I think we said some of the stuff that might happen.
If there's enough fan praise to get us motivated for Grimm, then
I'll check the statistics for the Grimm video and see. Is that the one that? Wait, is that the one that we lost the audio on? Did we even upload the Grimm?
I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of something different.
Really hope we do. Oh, jeez.
One of the ones we lost the audio on, and I thought it was the Grimm one. So it might be that we're talking about an episode that's never been released.
Shoot.
We'll check. Well, what should be coming up is we did Thor: The Dark World, and I've really wanted to do Ultron for a while now because I have a ton of ideas for it. So we'll probably do that after we do our TV episode, which will either be Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Probably. We did season 4 and season 5. Did we say that there would be a season 6? We did, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely did.
We didn't do season 6.
No, we
said
didn't
there
do
would be a
season
season 6.
We said there would be a season 6. Yeah, so we'll probably do season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We'll possibly finish out.
No.
We could do Legend of Korra. That would be the 3rd season of Footnotes version of that story.
Change, I think.
We discussed that in the Korra episode that we're not using the same titles for the seasons because they don't need to mimic the way that the original series was because it's a separate thing and you don't want to become a parody of yourself. Don't become the Simpsons. If that's the lesson that you can take away. Never become the Simpsons. Eat my shorts, man. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day, and remember to stay wacky and zany and different from other people because it improves your self-confidence and it makes you feel like not such a loser.
No comment.